Okay, so to continue, the next step is step 4, calculate the test statistic. For proportion, our test statistic is the z-score, and here is the formula for that. P hat comes from our sample, so it's 0.35, and P comes from the null hypothesis, in this case is 40%, and then square root of P hat times Q hat over N, which is 25. And to 3 decimal places, that should give me negative 0.524. So that is my test statistic. And now our job is to see whether this test statistic, z-score for my P hat, sample proportion, lands in the rejection area or not. Okay, so the next step 5. Critical value or p-value method. We're using a critical value method right now, so I crossed out the p-value. So we want to find the appropriate critical value, which is z sub alpha over 2, which is z sub 0.025 and negative z sub 0.025. These are the cutoff points at both ends. This is called a two-tailed test because we have a rejection area on both sides at both ends. And the rejection area, the cutoff is at 1.960 and negative 1.960. So these are the critical values for us. Okay, so the decision finally is, let's see, that my red line, I like to draw a line where the test statistic is with respect to the critical values or the shaded area. And my test statistic is negative 0.524. The middle is 0. This is negative 1.96, so it's in between those two numbers. So which means my test statistic is not in the rejection area, which means I cannot reject the null hypothesis. So you're right, because the test statistic is not in the shaded rejection area, we do not reject the null hypothesis that p is equal to 0.4. And that's exactly what you should write. Okay, so that gives us a conclusion about the null hypothesis. Very last step is to write our decision or conclusion about the claim. In this case, the claim and the null hypothesis are the same. They both say p is equal to 0.4, but in many other cases, that might not be true. But in this case, they're both the same. So our conclusion about the null hypothesis is exactly the conclusion about the claim. So we write at 0.05 significance level, we do not reject the claim because we didn't reject the null hypothesis that 40% of stat students wake up before 8 o'clock. Okay, decision on claim is the same as the null hypothesis. They are the same statement that p is equal to 0.4. Okay, I'm going to stop and keep going, do another example in the next video.